All right, so the lesson for today is the wedding at Cana, but specifically the self-manifestation at the wedding at Cana. Manifestation means to show something, to make it obvious. And so what Jesus is showing is that he is God by performing this miracle. Now there's a lot of interesting things that are going on in this story, and so let's consider those as we study the second luminous mystery of the self-manifestation at the wedding at Cana. All right, so the second luminous mystery is the self-manifestation at the wedding at Cana. Manifestation means showing, and so it's Jesus showing that he is God here at this wedding at Cana. It's really important to note right off the bat in this conversation between Jesus and his mother that calling her woman is not disrespectful. It would be disrespectful if we called our mothers woman, but it's not, because he's not saying it that way. What he's doing is he's calling her Eve, but not Eve after the sin, because Eve was not called Eve until after the sin of Adam. This is Eve before she sinned, so she's called woman. And so Jesus is calling her the new Eve. In other words, he's the new Adam who's going to obey God in the way that Adam didn't. And so he has his new Eve who's going to help him in his obedience in the opposite way that Eve helped Adam in his disobedience. Note what's so important about this exchange. Our Lady talks to her son and asks for him to do a favor for this couple. It wasn't so that important. It was wine for a party. But she asks him for his help, and he does the miracle for her. She is pointing to Christ. She is telling us, do whatever he tells you, just like she tells the servants, because she's going to help us by interceding for us, by praying for us, by offering our prayers to God, and he will listen to them because she is his mother, and she is always going to point us towards Jesus. We need to do what he tells us, and that is what she is trying to help us to do, because she knows that's what's best for us. Now, what does Jesus do? What is the miracle here? Well, this water for purification, for washing, for religious washing, was from the old law. It was a Jewish custom based on the old law. 6 is the number for imperfection. It wasn't enough. And that's because the old law of the Jews was not enough to save us from sin. It's only when Jesus comes and he perfects that by giving us the joy of salvation. Wine is a symbol of joy. So this is very important. This miracle is very important to point to what Jesus is going to do. He's going to cleanse us from our sin, and he's going to do so with his own blood. This is it's very important that we see that this happens at a wedding. Remember that the relationship between a man and a woman in marriage is only a reflection. It only shows us what the relationship between Jesus and the church is supposed to be like. That he loves us better than any husband, and we are supposed to love him back in a covenant relationship. So the fact that this is taking place at a wedding is a symbol of the wedding between heaven and earth, between God and man, between Jesus and his church. Now, since we're talking about a wedding, let's take some time today and talk about the sacrament of holy matrimony. This is very important. As we said in recent lessons, that marriage is holy, marriage is very important, marriage is given to us by God, and so we need to understand marriage, especially for those of us who are going to be living marriage maybe one day. We want to make sure that we're following God's plan the way he established it. And finally, because of how important marriage is, we also want to study today the 6th and the 9th commandments. The sixth and the ninth commandments are the ones that regard marriage and sexuality. And it's just really important that we avoid these sins of impurity, not because we're breaking rules. The commandments are never just about rules, but particularly because what God has given us in marriage is so holy that we have to treat it with respect. And so we want to make sure that we avoid these sins of impurity in the sixth and ninth commandments. And let's consider this then again from our catechism.